Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Ninsel, host of AZ Illustrated Politics, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national affairs. Tonight, we'll look at the local impacts of the federal sequester and catch up with the latest from the Arizona Legislature. We'll also talk about the Tucson City Council's decision to reject a big box Sam Club on the south side and talk about this year's council races. But first, a look at today's top stories.
On this first day of March, the National Weather Service says February was colder than normal. Everyone remembers the snowstorm that hit southern Arizona. According to the Weather Service, the average low temperature in Tucson was 37 degrees, nearly 5 degrees cooler than normal. The average high temperature for February was about 64 degrees, again cooler than normal. Weather Service forecasters are predicting a warmer March. An Arizona law allowing school districts to spend unused bond money without voter approval is unconstitutional, according to the state appeals court. In a 10-page decision, 3 judges on the Court of Appeals unanimously ruled that the Cave Creek School District should not have spent unused bond money without first going to voters, despite the fact that a 2010 law says otherwise. The school district could ask the state Supreme Court to hear the case for a final ruling, but so far no decision has been made on that legal path. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture is offering loans for Arizona farmers and ranchers who lost money because of the state's ongoing drought. The loans are available for farmers and ranchers in all 15 Arizona counties. Officials with the Arizona Department of Agriculture say the lack of water can drive up costs and drive down profits. The loans are granted to counties experiencing extreme drought, as well as contiguous counties. 5 Arizona counties are directly affected. The other 10 are either neighboring those 5 or neighboring California and Utah counties that also have disaster designations because of drought. Arizonans have 8 months to apply for those loans. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
President Obama said automatic government spending cuts are not the apocalypse, they are just dumb, after he and Republicans failed again to reach a deal to prevent them.
We get the latest on the political maneuvering here in Washington and ask reporters from around the country where and how the impact will be felt.
Then we examine Detroit's troubles as Michigan's governor declares a fiscal emergency, setting the stage for a state takeover.
Margaret Warner reports on the economic turmoil in Egypt 2 years after a revolution toppled the Mubarak regime.
Ray Suarez talks with the director of a new documentary about Americans struggling to put food on the table.
Plus, Mark Shields and David Brooks analyze the week's news.
That's all ahead on tonight's NewsHour.
Tonight on Arizona Week.
The budget reduction known as sequestration is upon us. Will it be a big whack with a meat cleaver or slow death by 1,000 cuts?
What we're likely to see is an impact of maybe 30,000 jobs lost in Arizona over about a 2-year period. So that's one area where there's been some exaggeration. You can't have everything happen all at once.
We'll look at the cuts and their impact on Arizona's economy and government. And a communications expert tells us if the public is served by the political and media hype. Tonight on Arizona Week.
The midnight deadline came and went last night, with lawmakers in Washington unable to come to an agreement to avoid the budget sequester that will require across-the-board government cuts. Joining me to talk about the local impact of the sequester, former Tucson City Councilwoman Carol West, former State Senator Frank Antinori, and former Pima County Democratic Party Chairman Jeff Rogers. Thanks to all of you guys for being here. Jeff, we're going to do a deep dive on the sequester on Michael Cheehawk's show later this evening, so I don't want to talk too much about it today. But I did attend a press conference this afternoon with Congressman Grijalva and Mayor Rothschild, and they were talking about their concerns about these sequester cuts, ranging from longer lines to cross the border, impacting trade, to folks in Section 8 housing losing their assistance, to impacts on the local military installations. Your thoughts on where we're at here?
Well, I'm more deeply concerned about throwing the economy into a tailspin and looking at it from a large macroeconomic perspective. What we learned from December when the Department of Defense cut back on purchasing is that it had a huge negative effect on the gross national product. And so there's a real legitimate chance that this kind of a swift cut, executing in 7 months what should have been spread out over a year, and such large cuts in various areas could really throw this economy back into recession. And and that can happen locally, it can happen statewide, it can happen nationwide. And so I'm more deeply concerned about that. But when we look at the effects of it, for instance, we were just talking about the Border Patrol. I had a supervisor at the Border Patrol tell me that by cutting their, furloughing them and cutting out all overtime, that it will be an effective 40% cut in pay. Well, if you start doing that all across military installations in Arizona, and you do that perhaps in some of the defense contractors, you're going to actually start to see restaurants who have to lay off employees because people are not purchasing food and to the same extent. You're going to see car sales drop. You're going to see new home sales drop. I mean, so there could be a long-term effect here that is takes us back into the recession that we're slowly exiting. So we've got to be a lot more cautious and careful about how we make these kinds of cuts in the future, because government spending is such a large part of every economy, and particularly in Arizona, we will have the 13th largest effect of the sequester of all of the 50 states, that we have to think this through. And I'm disappointed that both sides couldn't come together and do what was better for the state, our state and for the United States.
And Frank, you've been through the cutting experience up at the state legislature. Are some of these concerns being overblown that we're hearing?
Well, if you compare it to the state reduction in spending, it's a drop in the bucket. We're actually talking about somewhere between 2.3 to 2.5%, and it's more of a decrease in the growth of spending, not an actual reduction in overall government spending. I think as Jeff had pointed out, where they're going to be making some of these reductions are going to have more of a significant impact than had they been a 2.3% reduction in spending across the board. And I'd wish the president had kept his promise when he agreed to the debt ceiling increase that we were going to do cuts and revenue increases. He got his revenue increases. Well, now it's time for the cuts, but he's breaking that promise now, and he wants more tax increases and no cuts. Well, I think it's time for people to realize that we cannot continue to spend on this trajectory. And there's a great organization out there called Citizens Against Government Waste that identified probably 536 places that we can reduce spending. Many of them are corporate welfare that go to these large companies, subsidies to the agriculture industry, subsidies to the shipping industry, members of Congress who put billions of dollars in the defense budget for stuff the Defense Department doesn't want or need and has not asked for that can be cut. And if Congress were to go through and look at some of these ideas that are 5 times more than what the sequester is going to reduce, we can find the reductions in federal spending and avoid the sequester altogether. But it's time to get to work in D.C., and I would hope both the President and the leadership in both the House and the Senate would get together and maybe start eliminating some of these pork projects and cut the spending in a good, prudent manner.
Well, one of the other really big problems with this is the lack of flexibility. For instance, let's take the FAA, for example. You've got new runways being built on some airports, but you can't stop those projects and say we got to move this into air traffic controllers so that we can continue the same system. And so that's really the biggest problem with it, is that none of these agencies are going to be given any flexibility because that's how they wrote the sequester.
And I would agree with that. That's correct. And don't forget, it was the White House that put this sequester package together in exchange.
That's not entirely true.
Exchange for the debt ceiling.
Carol, welcome to the Roundtable for the first time. And I want to let you get a word in here.
Well, as these gentlemen are pointing out, there should have been a process for this. I'm concerned particularly about the Section 8 housing. If those people who are on Social Security, we'll say, lose that benefit, the stipend that they get to keep them in housing, where are they going to go? And a lot of them are senior citizens. Sometimes they're young families with children. Do we need more homeless people? And it seems to me that that's where we're headed with this. And we absolutely, there's no question there should be cuts. But those have to be done in a thoughtful way. And most agencies know where they can cut and still stay in business. They weren't allowed to do this. And I think both parties are to blame for this.
All right, and I'm sure we will talk more about the sequester and again more on it on Michael Cheehawk's program at 8:30 this evening. But I want to shift gears to the legislature. Frank, one of Governor Brewer's big agendas for this session is the reform of some of the education funding, rewarding schools that see improved academic achievement. Your thoughts on the policy there, and does it have support in the legislature?
I would say there is support for it in the legislature. What we're trying to find, what the governor is trying to find, is a way to incentivize performance. And the better you do, the more funding you get, and the less you do and the worse you do, the less funding you get. I think there's got to be some accountability with regard to certain school districts based on the economic situation in some of these low-income school districts. There's an issue with that I believe they're trying to work out, where they don't inadvertently reward wealthy districts and punish poor school districts. But I think the general theme is that if you can gauge it for both those demographics so that performance is enhanced and rewarded with the monetary benefit, say the harder you work, the better you do, the more funding you'll get, versus those schools that don't perform, I think we've got to go to that incentive to encourage school districts to focus on education.
Carol, your thoughts?
I think this emphasizes the haves and the have-nots. I think it's a plan that's fraught with problems, and I frankly hope that it disappears. I want to see better education overall. Locally, we're starting to see the tutors coming forward for those students under third grade that may not be performing up to snuff. I think there are some creative ways to handle this underperformance, and I haven't seen any of those. And I think that's the way to go, rather than having a plan where, well, it's a pay-for-performance kind of thing that, to me, it's inequitable, and it just can't be sustained, I don't think.
And Jeff, the governor also wants to do a sales tax reform plan, and there's a very complex sales tax formula that we have in the state right now, and they've tried to simplify it, but the local communities are complaining that this is going to eat into particularly the construction sales tax for communities that are depending on that.
Yeah, there are some real problems with this bill. Everybody agrees, and I think it's something we probably all can agree on here, that our sales tax is very burdensome on businesses, on private businesses, and it's a mess, and it does need to be fixed. But this is not the right fix. I mean, the local communities, particularly growing communities like Oro Valley, perhaps Vail, when it incorporates they depend even more so on these construction sales taxes, and this creates a kind of perverse incentive to basically buy your construction supplies from out-of-state suppliers, because those out-of-state suppliers wouldn't pay this tax at all. Currently, you're taxed at the place of the building. And so therefore, the cities and towns that are growing and need that to build the necessary infrastructure to help accommodate that growth, use that money for those purposes. And so if you take away that large amount of money that are going to towns and cities, then they don't have an easy revenue replacement for it. So I think that one of the things that has been troublesome about the legislature over the last 6 to 10 years has been that they haven't been very sensitive to the needs of towns and cities. And all the way from telling them how to run their elections to not giving them their fair share of highway user funds, to all kinds of other things, like, for instance, trying to take our county's sewage plant and give it to another city. So I'd like to see a little more deference given to local governments by the legislature, and I think it's a little better this year than it was in the last, but I think we've still got a ways to go.
And Frank, I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
4 out of 7 of those were mine, by the way, and that's why he did that, just so everybody knows. But the governor is trying to respond to business leaders in this state who have to spend an extremely large amount of money on accountants and tax attorneys dealing with an archaic tax code that's all over the place. And she's trying, in good faith, to simplify the code. I know that State Representative Debbie Lesko is going to be having a stakeholders meeting with the League of Cities and various representatives from municipalities to work out a change to the state shared revenue formula that will offset the reduction that comes from the construction sales tax. So the cities may actually reap a windfall in this by getting a larger proportion of state shared revenue to offset this construction tax loss. But we have to do something to create the business climate in this state that doesn't discourage retail businesses that have to do all these different maneuvers to deal with the transaction privilege tax code. So, I gotta give it to the governor for taking on this. Is a heck of a big bite to bite off. And she's trying very hard, along with Representative Lesko and others in the legislative leadership, to simplify this tax code. Now, I hope they have this dialogue with the cities and all these concerns are alleviated. But we can't keep doing this. The tax code here is causing problems for business, and it's got to be changed.
And the early vote here out of committee had bipartisan support on this package, although I think there's some assumption there's going to be some amendments.
As you know, that happens a lot, and then the lobbyists swoop down once they see that a bill has traction and start changing minds. And I've seen that bills fly out of committees without a single no vote, die an abysmal death on the floor when it goes up for a floor vote because the lobbyists get a hold of it. And I'm sure there'll be all sorts of folks meeting with members to try to tell them why they shouldn't support this bill. But I know the governor's staff and again, Representative Lesko are working really hard to try to iron out those problems, and hopefully they can get this bill through.
And Carol, there's another bill. Oh, if you want to weigh in on this.
I really think there's a lack of trust here. The cities don't believe that they're going to end up with a windfall. Whatever happened to the plan several years ago where the sales tax would be extended to services and it would be lessened but broadened? And it seems to me that, yes, I don't think any of us here disagree with the tax code needing some reform, but this is not the way to do it. It's taking it out of context, could make it even worse. And so, I commend Senator Lesko for thinking about going to the cities, but she should have done that last summer. And now it's a little bit too late, I think.
And let me ask you about this other legislation up there passed through committee this week on in vitro fertilization and greater regulation of that. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. More and more women in their 40s are wanting to have children. They've delayed that because of their careers. And this is a way for them to have children. Now, I understand that there is a proposal for a study. And, who's going to do the study? The legislators? And I think the concern is that the embryos are destroyed, that are not used. There was an interesting segment last night on the news that the Cleveland Clinic has found that some of these embryos, this is a little too scientific perhaps, but that they're volatile, if that's a way to put it, and that sometimes they don't result in a pregnancy. And so they've found some ways to deal with this issue. But I suspect that's partly what's behind this. I don't think it's all good news at all for women in the state of Arizona.
And Frank, there were some conversations about this in the last session.
Yeah, I didn't like the bill in the last session. There was reasons because, and I'll just be blunt with you, there are a lot of, I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, this cuts across both ideological demographics. There's a lot of Republican women who are unable to have children that need access to this service in order to have kids. And some of the bills the legislature were running would have significantly impacted that and made it difficult for those doctors and those clinics to provide this service. And I think it was wrong. I think, what I think what the Center for Arizona Policy is trying to do is commendable, but I think they're going about it in the wrong way. I think when you're dealing with this particular issue regarding reproductive health, this is a doctor-patient issue, and I think that some of those sort of relationships need to be left at that, doctor and patient issues.
Yeah, this is really just a thinly disguised attack by the Center for Arizona Policy on reproductive rights, and reflects, once again, the sort of obsession with a woman's reproductive rights that the Republican Party, exclusive of Frank here, I'm happy to say.
Well, that's because I got a medical background. I'm thinking again in the context of that.
If you look back at this last election, Republicans wouldn't have needed Hispanic voters if they could win a majority of women. And they've got to learn that they cannot continue with these kinds of attacks on women's reproductive rights. And as Frank was saying, this affects men too. I mean, this is, and what it is it creates this study, but it forces a kind of record keeping upon these clinics and doctors that threatens them with a felony, and it threatens them with losing their medical license if they don't comply with all of these.
And as a Republican, I got to strongly oppose that. That's more regulation. That's more onerous pressure on businesses, and this is a business. And as a Republican, most Republicans should be against increasing this regulatory burden on business. This is just something that, again, oh God, I'm going to agree with Jeff Rogers.
Look at this.
That
all across the
that you
roundtable.
should. This is one area that the legislature shouldn't stick their nose. And I didn't like it the last time, that Representative Bartow, now Senator Bartow, ran it, and there was problems with it. And I remember it fell apart last time over this similar issue because many women called my office and said, "Hey, Frank, I'm a hardened supporter of yours, but I think this is an area where you should not dabble." And I tend to agree. It's something that should be left between the physician and his patient.
All right, a lot still going on at the legislature, which I hope we can get to in future weeks. But I wanted to talk a little bit back here at the local level. Carol, your old colleagues on the city council have an election year this year.
Yes.
And this week we learned that Karen Ulick in Ward 3 is facing a rematch from Ben Buehler-Garcia, the Republican who came within, I think, 175 votes or so of unseating her last time. You suspect that Karen Ulick has a real challenge on her hands here?
I do think she does. I think that Ben came close the last time. I know that the business community is going to support him. And Karen has weathered some difficulties, of course, but I think she's vulnerable. And I think that this could be a year when we elect a Republican to the city council.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Several reasons. One, first off, the Greens are not on the ballot this year. There were 4,600 Green votes cast in that, and as we know, 90%, if not 99% of those Greens would have fallen into the Democratic column had there not been a Green on the ballot, and they won't be on the ballot this time. So that changes that. In addition to that, 2009 and 2010 were sort of the epitome of the sort of Tea Party craze that was going on both nationwide and here. And we've all know that was basically just a Republican phenomenon. It wasn't any kind of real new grassroots effort. And that was the peak of that, and that has gone. And the third reason is that we have finally sort of slain the ghost of Rio Nuevo. And in 2009, Steve Kozachik, running as a Republican, was able to use that, as did Ben Buehler-Garcia, but not quite as successfully, to really, really pound on the candidates that were on the ballot that year. Well, we've solved Rio Nuevo to a great extent. We still need to find out, what happened and where. The audits still need to be produced. We still need to keep some system of transparency in place. But most of that, you can say for all of those three reasons, I think that Karen probably wins handily.
And Frank, your thoughts?
Well, first, Ben's got to get by a primary. I found out today that he may have a primary challenger.
Is that right?
That's right. So we'll see how that goes.
Can we share a name?
Well, he's a local radio station producer. That's right. I'll get with you later. I don't want to blow him out of the water yet. But I heard today that there may be a primary in that race. The other thing is that I think Councilwoman Ulick's got to run on what I think in a year that's outside of the normal. Don't forget, this is like a special election, and whichever party can get their vote out and key in on certain issues. And when you're in a city and running a city that is now 6th in the country for the highest poverty rate, when you're lagging behind the rest of the state in economic development and job growth, when your roads are a disaster and you're focusing on attending protests in front of the police station because somebody was driving around with their kids improperly restrained in a vehicle versus getting the roads fixed and funding the police and fire departments in this town, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. And I think Ben is going to zero in on those and draw out those differences and say she's running again on this pro-business. Every time the election comes up, all of a sudden the council becomes pro-business. But they just tanked the deal that would have put $4 million into the city's revenue fund with a $1.5 to $2 million revenue from the sales tax going on there, 160 to 200 jobs flushed down the drain, all because they hated Walmart, Jim.
It was Sam's Club opening up.
This is a hatred of Walmart. So the far left hates Walmart. They're the evil empire of the retail business, and Sam's is a subsidiary. So rather than create the 160 to 200 jobs and bring in almost $2 million a year in revenue, plus the $4 million windfall from the sale, they tanked it. And they're going to hope that some euphemistic business is going to buy this property now after having to see what happened with this developer over a 99,000 square foot limit.
And I want to ask Carol about that incident because you were on the council as the big box ordinance unfolded.
I was. The big box ordinance has its good points and its bad. The good ones, of course, are that it protects neighborhoods, gives them some certainty, and it also gives the developer some certainty. On the other hand, I do think it's time to revisit the 10% grocery floor space. because it's unrealistic. And I agree with Frank. This is an opportunity. There was some revenue for the city in this, and it's time to re-look at this ordinance, I feel. And so the sooner the council does this, the better their revenue pictures are going to look.
And let me get Jeff in here on this one.
Well, the fact is we do have this ordinance, and they can waive that, and they have waived it on occasion, and they do that when neighborhoods come in and say, we want you to waive it. When we see the development that took place on the south side recently, in Councilman Feinbrust's district, that was all welcomed by that community. I'm not hearing the same welcoming over in the community in the area where this Sam's Club was supposed to be. So while we may need to tweak the big box ordinance, I think we need to listen to neighborhoods. And if the neighborhoods want it, and they want what is going to be jobs and tax revenue, and they want the purchasing opportunity, then I think we should listen to those neighborhoods. But I'm not hearing that these neighborhoods are howling like Frank is, saying, we missed this big opportunity. I'd like to hear from those neighbors, and if they're angry and say, no, we did want that in our neighborhood, and then I think we should listen to them.
One of the most economically depressed areas in Tucson is the southwest side. I mean, you have the Indian reservation there, and you have an economically depressed neighborhoods and barrios, whatever you want to call them. That these people need jobs, and to turn away, not to mention the hundreds of construction jobs that this would have created for those in the trades, the retail jobs, I think is just short-sighted. And if you're going to run as a pro-business city council person, I don't think you need to have a record of kicking 160 to 200 jobs out of the city.
I think this council's got a pretty good record over the last several years. I mean, when we were in the worst really depression since the Great Depression, these guys balanced the budget and did it without affecting public safety.
And with just 2 minutes remaining, but I wanted to mention Felicia Rodolini got into the Attorney General's race this week. She ran better than any other Democrat, I think, in 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And Jeff, your thoughts on what kind of candidate she's going to be?
I'm a strong supporter of Felicia Rodolini. I think she'll make an outstanding Attorney General. I think she was probably done in by that last-minute negative advertising attacking her that now we've learned was an illegal coordination of efforts with a so-called independent committee that was helping Tom Horn. So I think Tom Horn's dead in the water, and if I were a Republican, I'd be running somebody in the primary against him, because he's not going to win no matter who we put into this race, because he's got so much baggage right now.
And less than a minute left, Frank, but Tom Horn does have some political issues.
Bill Montgomery. I'm channeling Bill. I'm hoping Bill decides to jump in the race. He's very ethical. He's a sharp guy, and he'd be an awesome Attorney General.
And Horn troubled?
I think the reality is the baggage is too much this time. He barely won against Rodolina last time. She's going to pound him on this, and I think he needs to gracefully bow out and let somebody else step in there.
And Carol, there's some chance Terry Goddard might get into this race?
Oh, I would be surprised. I think Felicia is a good candidate, and we have a long history of women elected officials. So this is another one.
Okay, and we're going to have to leave it there. Obviously, a lot still going on at the Arizona Legislature and other topics, but I would like to thank my guests, and we will be right back with some closing thoughts. You can learn more about politics by visiting azpm.org or by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Join us here next Friday as we tackle the week in review on AZ Illustrated Politics. I'm Jim Ninsel, and thanks for watching.